I thought I would read just the first couple of pages from the story that's in review, just to give you a taste. And then after that, I'm going to read a brief excerpt from my latest novel, Sweetness in the Belly. So the story in review is called The Principles of Exile. My mother has sent me out to Saint Denis by metro because Alsan, the cleaner at her office, has told her that the best halloumi is to be found floating in a bucket at the back of a Lebanese bakery in the market there. My mother would make the cheese herself if she could, just as she is making baklava from whisper-thin sheets of phyllo and honey produced by bees raised in fields of lavender. For Monsieur Sarkis, a man whose picture sits framed on top of the piano as if he is a relative, nothing but the best will do. My father tells her she needn't bother. We'll cater, we'll order, we'll dine at Le Paradis. But my mother is insistent. We will entertain at home, and she will cook. For this is a man who for so long did not have the safety and comfort of a home, living in hiding under threat of a fatwa calling for his assassination for the better part of a decade. The fatwa was finally lifted last year, and Sarkis's new book is about to be launched in Paris. My father, his French publisher, has been talking of little else for months, even losing interest in the Swiss copy editor with the shiny black bob and the pert breasts. Ours is a small publishing house established by my grandfather from money inherited from his father, an engineer who built railway lines in Africa. My father, attempting to shake off the colonial residue when he took over as publisher in 1969, dropped the word dark and relaunched the house as simply Continent Editions. He did not make any significant money and did not expect to when he signed on a relatively unknown Lebanese-American author named David Sarkis, who had penned a startling novella about a Muslim cleric's sexual awakening. The British edition was published first. We could never have anticipated the reaction. Radical Muslim clerics immediately denounced the book as a defamation of Islam, and others raised enough money to offer a $1 million reward for Sarkis's head. Our edition quickly followed, as did deals for publication in 27 other countries. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Continent Editions had a bestseller, and David Sarkis was a star. My father thrived on this recognition, a reward that seemed worth the threat of the black Mercedes with tinted windows that started following him home from work, worth the inconvenience of having to change his route every day, worth the expense of hiring a driver, worth the seriousness of the bodyguard the government assigned to protect us, worth the threat to himself, to my mother, to me. Until he received the letter threatening to kidnap me, at which point my mother, for all she shared in the excitement, for all it seemed to have reinvigorated their marriage, said, "Enough." My father's solution was to stop the driver outside a travel agency after picking me up from school one day, asked the agent to book me a ticket to the farthest place possible. At 14, I was sent off to Australia, and not to Sydney or Melbourne, but to the remote and desolate interior, without a return date. The squat, veiled woman behind the counter has her eye on me as I scan the shelves, as if I'm about to make off with something. I'm taking it all in, the sweaty smell of cumin, the sizzle of frying falafel patties, the sour vinegar emanating from vats of Greek olives. A boy who must be her son, taller than her and pockmarked by acne, asks me if he can help find something, while she slips behind a curtain. I tell him I've come for cheese. He says they have no cheese, and I ask him, not even halloumi? Halloumi we have, he says. Isn't halloumi cheese? Yes, he says. How much do you want? The boy's mother reemerges, realizing that I'm harmless, just a man who doesn't know exactly what he wants. She says something to her son in Arabic, and he translates, "What are you using it for exactly?" I don't know, I admit. My mother, she's making Lebanese food, for a Lebanese man. The squat woman winks at me, evidently understanding. She pulls a plastic bag off a roll and plunges her hand into a white plastic bucket behind her. She captures a big piece of halloumi floating in the water and deftly inverts the bag. He's just a friend of the family, I explain. Well, not a friend exactly, a writer, a famous writer. We published his book. Perhaps you know him. David Sarkis? The squat woman squints, opens the plastic bag, spits onto the halloumi, twists and ties the neck of the bag, and thrusts it into my hand. I'm left standing there holding this clear plastic bag at arm's length, as if it contains a dead goldfish. I hand over all the money in my pocket to the boy. Perhaps he shares the same view of Sarkis as his mother, because he makes no effort to hand me any change. and I make no effort to ask for it. So if you want to find out what happens to that cheese, or any other vital information, there's no easy way to segue into this novel, but Sweetness in the Belly is a novel that is set against the backdrop of a revolution that occurred in Ethiopia in 1974. And this was a revolution when Haile Selassie, who was the last emperor of Ethiopia, was overthrown. And what came to power subsequently was a brutal socialist dictatorship for the next 17 years that was responsible for something that today we would probably call a genocide. We weren't really using the term then, and we weren't really looking at Ethiopia in this way. It was lost to us behind an iron curtain. It was also responsible for the creation of, subsequent famines, subsequent repeated famines, and also a worldwide diaspora of Ethiopian refugees for the first time in history. And the novel moves back and forth between the dying years of Haile Selassie's empire in Ethiopia and a community of refugees who are beginning to congregate in London, England, struggling to create meaningful new lives for themselves in this place of exile. And it's told from the perspective of an unusual refugee. She's actually a white Muslim woman who was raised in Africa, raised in a local community, considered Ethiopia home, was forced to leave when the revolution occurred. So I'm going to introduce you to Lily in London with her friends. Sita sits in my lap, busily twisting a paperclip in my ear while I stuff envelopes. For all her early unabashed bellowing, she is now, at 4, terribly shy. She might grow out of it, Ahmed has, but perhaps we're at fault for overwhelming her. Every Saturday morning she sits here with us in the Community Association office, witness to the wildly shifting moods of the place. I've often wondered whether it's fair to expose her to all this, but Amina is adamant. Her children will know their history, even where that history hurts. She can have her dolls and her plasticine, Amina says, just as long as she knows where she comes from. Where she comes from is undergoing one of the darkest periods in its history, and that is written on the faces of every one in the steady stream of people who come through the door of this office, seeking news of loved ones and requests for help with housing, asylum applications, employment, English. It's hard to know how much Sita understands. What she cannot know is that Ethiopia has not always been this way, that there were happier times. While Sita sits in my lap, her brother is at the madrasa, where he studies Quran alongside Iranian and Pakistani children in the Bible-scened backroom of a church. Amina stands behind me, cheerfully bouncing coffee beans in a tin plate over a Bunsen burner perched on top of the filing cabinet. She lights a stick of incense and waves it in one hand as she sings a song of few but potent words. The coffee beans smoke and chuckle their way from green to brown, transforming this cramped, windowless room on the ground floor of a house in a desperate London borough into a more comprehensible world. A familiar world where the smell of coffee draws women together. An olfactory call throughout a neighborhood, luring women from their homes to gather, to chatter, to solve the mysteries and miseries of the universe, or at least of their domestic lives. Amina and I started talking about this organization in 1982. We were sensing the increasing need for an office in London where people could exchange names in the hopes of locating family members. But much as we talked about it, we didn't act. We said it was because we were too busy, daily life trapping you with its demands. We offer some relief to each other in this regard. Every Sunday we cook together, making a week's worth of injera and preparing and freezing containers of what. I often babysit, and I'm always available to help with homework, while Amina stops by the market for fresh vegetables on her way home from work, and has an unfathomable love of ironing, a passion I encourage by turning up in wrinkled shirts. "Oh, give me that, Lily," she'll tisk, tugging at my sleeve. "Honestly, you're shameful." I'll unbutton my shirt and she'll tisk again. "I know," I say, rolling my eyes. "I'm too skinny." She teases me about this all the time. "It's too many cigarettes," she chastises. "And never enough food." She happily slaps her own belly. My body is a whisper, where hers is a shout. Amina and I live in separate flats, though we share domestic responsibilities, including the children, tease each other, bicker occasionally, and compare appearances that are nothing alike.